Another brick fan with a Harry Potter set. This is the Ministry of Magic. This is set 76403, was released in June 2022. It has 990 pieces, 9 minifigures, and cost about $100 when it was released. My first impression of this set is it is very colorful. It is fairly large in the sense that it takes up a lot of space, but there's not a lot of substance to the build, right? So it's a very narrow build, as you'll see as we get into it, but it is extremely modular, which allows you to kind of configure it however you want. I think this would look really cool if you had 2 or 3 of these sets, or maybe just had kind of the shells and could make your own office. It does really allow for really interesting expansion possibilities, but to get those pieces is probably going to cost you a lot more than $100. Regardless of that, we have 9 minifigures, 10 if you want to count the statue there, that gold statue you see down in the middle. And we'll take a closer look at all those minifigures here in a moment. But let's start with the little accessories that go with the ministry first. So as you can see, there's several little accessories that come with this, starting with these little spinners, I suppose you could call them. So if you remember from the movies, they had a bunch of little pieces flying around the ministry. So these could be considered like magical drones, I suppose, carrying equipment around or packages around the Ministry of Magic. Similarly, there is these triangles here that are on these clear posts, which I believe are set to, these are to represent like letters or papers that fly around in kind of a paper airplane form throughout the ministry. Here's a closer look at the statue. So this is the statue that sits in the middle of the ministry. As you can see, it's all done in pearl gold, so it looks like kind of it's in a fountain. So there's this nice dark green with some of these kind of charcoal colored ingot pieces. There's flowers in pearl gold, some frogs down here in pearl gold, as well as the kind of the whole hat and beard and everything here. Makes for a pretty nice little statue. I mean, I guess you can consider this a minifigure. So there's our 10th minifigure. It's not really a character, but it certainly is a minifigure that comes with the set. Lastly, we have this phone box, or phone booth, I guess we would call it in the States. This is pretty nicely done. A lot of stickers here. Say telephone, so that's on every single side of this particular build. There's some build up on the sides here, a little pearl gold right here as well. And then we have this nice door that is in fact printed. So that was nice. And then inside there is a little telephone. Let's see if I can get some more light here for you. And then of course inside there is an actual telephone, the old style phone piece there up on the wall. So this is, I suppose, one of the ways to get into the Ministry of Magic. So a nice little phone booth side build as well. Moving back to the main build of the Ministry of Magic, this is all very modular. So there's this big banner here, which is done as a sticker. Let's get closer in and take a look at the top here that kind of comes off and holds the 2 sides, if you will, or the 2 towers together. So just taking a quick look at this, there's a lot of this dark green being used here. Some translucent green, kind of maybe as clouds or just decorations. Some more of these pearl gold accents. Here's the ministry symbol. Of course, this little banner here that comes down from the top. There is a little typewriter up here. So the little paper there and the typewriter keyboard. So there's a spot for someone to sit right up here. So this kind of holds the towers together, or the 2 sides of the ministry together, which turned out relatively nicely. So these towers are actually 6 different small modular builds. So we'll kind of walk through all of them. So these will all come apart, and honestly, they kind of come apart a little too easily. So moving this big build around is kind of difficult. Starting with one of the base pieces, and of course you can arrange these however you want, but on the ground floor, we definitely had a way to get into the ministry, and one of those was through like a flue powder, through a fireplace. So if we put a minifigure in here, there is an action feature where this opens up or slides backwards, so we can drop the figure out. On the other side, you see there's a little handle here that we can use to move that. So we wanted to bring it down like this, put a figure in here, and then flip it back up. That figure then would be brought into the ministry. Another one of the bottom pieces is this that seems to have that has a bunch of stacks, it looks like, of newspapers. So there's some piping here. There are a couple of these lanterns that are kind of done in that cloudy, translucent look. So it has a little bit of coloring and metallic type sheen to it. And it looks like there's like a pipe here that maybe feeds a heating system or something like that. Looking at the back, you'll see that there's this big piece here in the middle that kind of provides a structure. These little things on either side here represent or allow you to push and knock these papers off. So there's a couple spots where you can push the papers that have this, Harry Potter is the undesirable number one. In other words, their main guy that they're trying to get to. So you can just arrange these. So there's essentially 4 stacks of these flyers that you can just arrange along the bottom. Kind of moving up one level, we see kind of the middle section of the ministry, or the second floor. And you can see that we use these candle pieces that are in red to make these columns. And then there's some newspaper covered windows as well as some clear windows. Each of these little modules are basically built the same way. As you can see, at least the 4 that are above the ground floor. And inside of this, you see this is the prophecies. So again, some of this really nice kind of translucent, some of these really nice translucent pieces here with a metallic sheen on them. Pulling these things down here will move that whole prophecy shelf. And then there's another like blue flame here. So a couple of, callback to, I believe that was Order of the Phoenix, where they went to they went to the ministry to try and find the prophecy. So some nice pieces in there. Another section, which I would call kind of the middle section. Once again, the build on the outside, very similar, right? The red columns, the different windows. Inside is a very big, tall desk that has stacks of papers and writing on them. This could be thought of as that section in the basement where Umbridge is conducting a trial. So this desk does come out, and it does have the chair connected to it. So you could put Umbridge here on that. Of course, her Patronus could be there as well. And then she could be conducting a trial, so it provides some nice play feature with that as well. These last 2, so once again, same build on the outside, but on the inside, you see this is Dolores Umbridge's office. So you'll see that she's got the Ministry of Magic kind of newsletter, I guess, or internal memo maybe. Some pictures of cats here. She's got these pink bows. Of course, everything's done in this pink, so a pink carpet underneath her chair here. Her desk is pink. All the walls are painted pink. So that is Dolores Umbridge's office. And then finally, if we look on the inside of this one, this is Arthur Weasley's office. And there's a couple ways you can tell. I mean, obviously there's a big picture here of all the Weasleys. There's all kinds of like Muggle pieces in here. So there's a rubber duck over here. There's a boom box back here. You know, a clock, a fork, a bottle here. So there's some, you know, souvenirs or things that he's interested in from the Muggle world in here. So lots of nice detail inside of this little office space. So once again, you can kind of organize these however you want. So there's a section on the box that shows maybe having these only 2 high instead of 3 high. So we could have smaller towers perhaps. And then have 3 towers instead of 2. And it does have all of these connectors on the side, so there may be some plans for future expansions for this. They certainly have left that open. We could drop the top on here. So there, for example, is a way we could connect these together, and then you could use those pins to connect these 2 sections together if you wish. As Lego, it's really modular and really set up for you to do what you want and to create the scenes that you like. Let's go ahead and take a close look at all of the minifigures. Let's take a closer look at the minifigures, and as I mentioned, there are 9 minifigures, 10 if you count the statue. The minifigures include Harry Potter, Hermione Granger, Ron Weasley, Mary Cattermole, Arthur Weasley, Dolores Umbridge, Pius Thickness, who is the Minister of Magic, Corbin Yaxley, one of the Death Eaters, and a Dementor. Starting with the first 3, this is Harry, Hermione, and Ron. But as you can see, they are dressed up in very different outfits than you normally see them. That's because each of them had taken a polyjuice potion to look like somebody else. So just quickly here, Harry's in this nice black suit here, which is what Albert Runcorn, also a Death Eater, was wearing. Hermione is in the clothes here for Mafalda Hopkirk. And then, of course, Ron had Reginald Cattermole. You may recall that Mary Cattermole, which is also another figure we'll see in a minute here, was on trial downstairs. So to do this polyjuice potion thing, these all come with different hair pieces. So for Harry to become Albert Runcorn, you can see there's this different face and then a different hair piece. And same with Hermione to become Mafilda. Switch that out and she has this darker hair piece. Kind of a different hairstyle. And then of course for Reginald here, or Reggie, with the kind of blonde or tan colored hair and beard. Although I do like this nice striped blouse or shirt that Hermione / Mafilda is wearing. So nice to see these multiple heads and multiple characters done for these 3, which is very accurate to the movie. No printing on the sides for any of these, but then you can see all of the back printing here. And I guess maybe this is a kind of a faded suit, or maybe it's wet. Because as I remember, Reggie here was in charge of doing counter spells, and it was like raining in somebody's office. And he had to go fix that. That might have even been Corbin Yaxley that was yelling at him there at the beginning. So perhaps his suit is all wet, and that would explain some of the color differences you see there in the suit jacket. Let's take a look at our next 3 figures. Here we have our next 3 figures. Starting on this side, this is Mary Cattermole. Next to her is Arthur Weasley with his briefcase here, and next to him, of course, is Dolores Umbridge, and she has the Slytherin medallion piece. This is the Horcrux that Ron, Harry, and Hermione are trying to recover. This Dolores is slightly different than others we've seen, but she still has this, very pink outfit. So she has pink jacket here with a pink shirt, pink pants. I almost think that looks like a cat around her shoulders. She is quite the cat person. And of course she does have her cat Patronus here, done with that nice translucent coloring in the cat mold with the flecks of sparkle in it. So I think that makes for a nice effect. We've seen several different Patronuses. Moving around the figures, no side printing for any of them, but they've all got a little bit of back printing, pretty much what you would normally expect. There's more of a scared look here on Mary, and then here is Arthur Weasley's expression, and then Umbridge has kind of a shocked expression here. So all of these have alternate expressions. So now let's move on to see our last three minifigures. Our last three minifigures include Pius Thickness, who is the Minister of Magic in this nice pinstriped three-piece suit and a very dark blue tie. Next to him, this is Corbin Yaxley, one of the main Death Eaters. And then this is a Dementor, which we've seen this kind of style for quite a while. It looks like he has a little blast coming out and a little object here to represent some kind of fog or something that he can shoot there. I do like the dual molding here with the clear and the black to kind of give that ghostly or, phantom type appearance. Another briefcase here for our Minister of Magic. Looking around, you see Pius has this very long hairpiece here, and then Corbin has got this nice little ponytail in the back. A little bit of printing here on the back. You can see that better look at the Death Eater, and then this broken down cape, which I thought turned out very nicely. The Death Eater doesn't have any additional printing, and I don't think Corbin doesn't have any additional printing, but our Minister of Magic does. So Pius has this alternate expression. And then once again, you see that really nice pinstriping for his suit. Now that we've taken a look at all of the minifigures, let's go back and I will give you my final thoughts on this set. Overall, I like this set. Once again, I like the modular nature of it. When it is stacked up 3 high, it does make it fairly difficult to move around because there's only a couple of studs, maybe 4 studs, connecting each of the modules or each of the rooms together. So it does tend to fall apart a little bit when you try and move it around. So you got to kind of be careful. But if you're just leaving it out to display, it's nice. If you're going to play with it, I think putting it in a shorter configuration like this, where there's only 2 rooms, probably is a little bit better. Really good minifigures like we saw. So it does include Ron, Harry, and Hermione. And then the people that they used the Polyjuice potion to look like, which was Albert Runcorn, Mafalda Hopnick, and Reginald Catamol, which I thought that was really clever of them to have different faces on each side and then different hair pieces for each of those characters. You can see them right over here, for example. As far as value goes, this is just at that 10 cents per piece, right? 990 pieces for about $100. So give or take a tenth of a cent, we're right at that 10 cent per piece, which is pretty good for a Harry Potter set. And also you're getting, essentially 10 minifigures if you want to count the statue. So 10 minifigures in a $100 set is also a pretty good value. So as far as getting minifigures and getting a nice scene and potentially play set, there's a lot of stuff you could do inside of the Ministry of Magic. The Ministry of Magic was visited in a couple of the movies for sure, and maybe even one other. There's plenty of opportunity for playing out scenes from the movies. I like the offices they built for Umbridge and for Arthur Weasley. I thought those were really nice. This general framework is pretty cool for adding and creating your own offices using kind of your own pieces, so it does give you a lot of flexibility. And the way they built it, I wouldn't be surprised if they came out with some kind of expansion pack or additional Ministry of Magic rooms as a set in the near future. So I hope you've enjoyed my thoughts on this Ministry of Magic set from the Harry Potter universe. I'm going to get started on my next video. And until then, happy building. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe to see more of my content. I've left a link to my Harry Potter review playlist up here on the screen.